Good morning, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar looking at information security within the public sector. My name is Graham Poole, and I am the Regional Sales Manager for 8Man in the north of the UK. And I'm pleased to present some of the key findings from a recent survey we conducted alongside GovNews to understand and identify key issues within data security in the public sector. The webinar should last for around 20 minutes, and I will hand over to my colleague Sylvester around halfway through to introduce you to 8Man, which offers an excellent solution to a number of the issues which were identified within the survey. One of the key drivers behind the survey was the planned adoption of the new EU legislation, the General Data Protection Regulation, in spring 2016, as this reform needs to be the focus for all data protection managers and data owners. This will strengthen the rights of all EU citizens to ensure that their data is properly secured and not subject to loss, illegal use or transfer to third parties. As of spring 2018, when enforcement begins, the scale of the fines being considered for the most serious cases of data breaches or mismanagement are so significant that it will change data protection from being an IT issue to also becoming a concern for directors and business owners and senior management. What was clear from the results of this survey is that there is a historical attitude that data security is the sole responsibility for the IT department. So mind shift still needs to take place within most public sector organisations to enable people to contact with what's happening within the GDPR regulation to make sure that people are taking ownership over data protection going forward. So who participated in this? Well, 602 people responded to our survey across the entire public sector, with a significant response from local authorities, healthcare and education. And you can see from the slide that around 68% of respondents fell within these three categories. Over 80% of those who responded claimed to be a data owner, which is someone that can authorize or deny access to certain data and is responsible for its accuracy, integrity and timeliness. 65% of those surveys had serious concerns regarding data security within their organisation. So what were these concerns? Interestingly, the top 4 concerns were internal, including 60% of respondents saying that loss of data and errors by staff were top of mind, followed by compliance and IT systems failures. Outside threats, such as external hacking, only appear as the 5th biggest cause for concern, with just over a third of respondents identifying this as an issue for them. Access control, which in many ways can be used to reduce or avoid data loss or errors by staff by ensuring only the right people have access to sensitive data, was perhaps not given as much priority as it could be. So how do the concerns of respondents match with the actual data lapses experienced? On this slide, you can clearly see that the 2 biggest incidents match the biggest concerns seen on the previous slide, that of data loss and errors by staff. Again, most of the data lapses experienced are a result of internal problems and not external problems such as hacking. While hacking seems to get a lot more screen time on the news with recent cases such as TalkTalk hitting the headlines, what is clear is that internal issues which are driving data lapses within the public sector. And indeed, some of the actual verbatim comments that we saw within the survey included items such as internal hacking, where people were watching staff input passwords, where there was breach of confidentiality by other people who were working as contractors within the organisation, loss of data through that as well, and loss and exposure of printout material too. Looking at the actual time spent on reporting and auditing sensitive resources, I think the key takeaway here is that almost half of respondents did not know or were not able to quantify the time spent on reporting and auditing sensitive resources. I'm sure you would agree that it's a worrying finding, because normally what gets reported upon gets actioned, and if there is very little clarity on this, it suggests perhaps it is not happening and therefore data is at severe risk. Again, if we look at some of the verbatim comments coming out from the survey, we can see that people were maybe not as aware of what was happening, and they were seeing it as not their responsibility for reporting on this data. So certain comments along the lines of, we can't say exactly what's happening, but it's not excessive. We cannot quantify it. This is part of the remit for the IT department within their daily responsibilities. Also, we see that people are doing different audits at different times of year, depending on the risks involved or what they see as being a priority at that time. Certainly, it doesn't seem that information is not being captured, and the time devoting to it is certainly not substantial. Finally, I just wanted to look at the importance of protecting your data and something that's not happening at the moment based on some of the data here that we're seeing from both Merrill Lynch and the IDC. So Merrill Lynch have identified that 80% of data within all organizations is unstructured. And what that means is that it's not being given specific structure within how it's stored within the network of most organizations. Then we also saw from the IDC that 80% of data is lost from within the company. And this resonates and certainly relates to some of the findings we've seen from the survey earlier today, in terms of most of those risks and most of those concerns being around data loss internally. And that's something that 8man is able to support you on, and that's something that my colleague Sylvester will now take you through within the presentation. So over to you, Sylvester.
All right, thank you very much. If you can hand over the screen, I'll be sharing it momentarily. There we go. Can you see my screen all right?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, let's go. So indeed, what are we able to do with this, with 8man? Why do we need to manage this access rights? So as you've seen in the previous slides, it's quite important to have one of the key things, I think, is transparency. You need to have transparency in order to minimize your risks. That makes it that when you do make everybody responsible for everything, responsible for the data, you create data owners. And with having data owners, it becomes more efficient. So you do get more efficiency, and the administration of access rights will be better done. Automated processing makes it more efficient. So with security, what we can do is we can help you with all those compliance issues. We are really good at sending these reports, making sure that the right people have access to the right amount of data, and errors will not be done that way. So IDM integration, we can do that sort of thing. Audit proof reports, very, very important. So as we saw in the presentation, if you do reporting, more action will be taken on those reports. So if we can automate that, it would even be better. So automate a report, that's what we do. One of the essentials of access right management is, of course, the permission analysis. We need to know who's got access to what. Therefore, we can also do documentation and reporting. We can also monitor the security on it. We can see who's been accessing what has been done, who's made those changes, and all that sort of thing. Based on all the three before, we can now create roles and processes to optimize everything in your organization to make sure that everything works. One of the extra features we also can handle on is user provisioning. How do you provision a user? Very simple. You can just click on the button and say copy in the Active Directory, but that doesn't always work, because if you copy somebody's data who's already been in service for 20 years, you're not just copying the user, you copy the history of him as well. So if he's been in there for 20 years, all of the previous role which haven't been deleted will be copied to a new user as well. We can do that slightly different. We can say create templates for the different departments, for the different areas where you want this user to be created, and we'll make sure that they only get the access they actually need. So those are a couple of key areas where we think we can help you. Well, what can 8man do about it? We've got a quick technology breakdown. We are supported in the following technologies. So the Active Directory is what we can check, completely check to see what goes on there, who's got access where. File servers, so how many file servers you have. We can check all those file servers and make sure all the shares on there have the proper rights and the proper assessment. We can do reporting on the folders or specific folders and then create reports on it. All that sort of thing is a very simple start. Then we can expand that, of course. If you're using SharePoint, we can do the same thing. We can make sure that the SharePoint is properly managed and do reports on it and make changes on it. Same with Exchange, not just the mailboxes for the people, but also the shared mailboxes and that sort of thing. And on vSphere as well. Now there is also a couple of other expansions there. Grant Me Access, Grandma, is a very nice way in making sure that the people who need to can ask access via sort of a web portal. They can go into a web portal, they can select the shares they want or the piece of information they want, give a reason to it, and send it off. That will go to the data owner. The data owner will then just tick a box, say, yeah, this is okay, or deny it, and it will automatically be enforced. With the FS logger and the Active Directory logger, the file server logger and the Active Directory logger, what we can monitor is everything that happens outside of 8-man. So if any changes will be made outside of the 8-man control, we can look at it and we can make sure that that also can be reported. So how do we do this? If you are a technical guy and you need to find out how to actually, who has actually got right to a specific folder, in this case the marketing folder, what you can do, you can go to the properties of it. So you right mouse button on the marketing folder, and then you go to the next one, to the security. You can see here who's got access, what kind of access they have. If you then want to change this, you go to edit. And if you want to go even deeper, you can go to the advanced button. Quite nice. What this does in a lot of environments is that, well, yeah, we can see how this all works, but we need to somehow manage this. So a lot of companies and a lot of authorities and everything, they copy all that information into an Excel sheet. And there you go, you got one Excel sheet with everything in it. But it's not as easy as that, because if you can see in your properties that there are people in there, yes, you can copy those people in an Excel sheet. But what you can also do, you can also see here that there are groups in there. That means you have to go out of this environment, go into the Active Directory, look at those groups, see which people are in those groups, and then copy that into an Excel sheet. If there are groups in those groups, we need to go out of that, go into the other groups and copy it in here. Well, you can see how much effort it can actually take to look at all those permissions just for one share. With 8-man, it's much different. We go into the 8-man overview, we look up the folder that we want to. That could be by a search, or that could be just by drilling down to the file server itself. Click on the right share, and immediately you can see here who's got which access and what kind of access they have. Very simple, very straightforward. If there is any groups in there, we can open up those groups and we can see who are in those groups. We can even go right mouse button and report on it. Right mouse button, say create a report, and then schedule these reports. We can then automatically send these reports over to the marketing manager, for instance. He will get it in his email every month, or however often you schedule this. And therefore you now report on it. He will see it, he will look at it, and therefore he can action it as well. He can now say, yeah, you know what, that needs to change. What we also are very, very good at is just giving clarity. If we're looking at a specific folder, a specific group, a specific share, or something like that, how does everything relate? So here the sales owner has direct access to sales, sales EMEA, and the purchasing. But via there, he goes to the sales not important, but via there he also goes to all these other ones. So you can see exactly how everything relates. You can go from here to the sales not important, via here to the harmless group, over here, and via here he goes all the way down here. And this means that all of these groups underneath, all these users and groups underneath here, he's got access to. And that is because you can see exactly how he got there. And that's really important as well. And we can then take a snapshot of it, make a picture of it, put it in a report, send it over. We can do that all very simple and very, with very much ease. So what can we do about it? So what we want to do is make those people more responsible for what they do. So first thing we did was we sent the reports. Very easy, comes out as a PDF in your email. We'll see what's in there, and they can then action it. So the data owner can go into the console if they want to, and they can look at it. They can create their own reports. They can also see what is in there and even make changes in step 3. So In step 3, you're going to say, hey, this guy is no longer in my department, so therefore I need to take him out. You can do that. That has been requested. It doesn't do it automatically. It needs to be authorized by an administrator, or if you trust him enough, you can let him do it himself. But most of the time it will go to a level of authorization. And step 4, therefore you have full control over your resources. That's a very simple way of enforcing that everybody has the right access and making the people responsible who need to be responsible for what they are taking care of. That's it for me. If you want more information regarding 8man, if you want to do want to see a demo, want to have a bit more info on it, you can contact either me or Graham. Graham?
Yes, thank you very much, Sylvester, and thank you everybody for joining us today. I hope you found that of interest. As Sylvester said, we're more than happy to have a conversation with you around how 8man can support your organisation. We'd also recommend that you read the full survey report that we presented on today. I'm sure you'll find that of value to you. Take care and have a very nice day. Thank you.